Denney.
Please call me Audrey.
Audrey.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for being here. Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're running for office.
So I've lived in Chico since 2003. Moved up here to go to school. Grew up on a family farm on the Central Coast. We ranched beef cattle and we had draft horses. And my folks were some of the first people to plant wine grapes north of Paso Robles in the mid 80s. And so moved up here for an ag education degree. Fell in love with Chico and stayed, as many of us do, as is the common story here. I spent my career teaching agriculture at Chico State, doing some international human rights work, and then I've been in the private sector for the last decade, doing primarily nonprofit consulting, some with some ag businesses as well. So really my whole career trajectory has been about making systems work better for people. And that's really what I feel like I bring to this role, and I hope we get to dig into that a little bit today. I ran for this seat in 2018 and 2020 against the late Congressman Lamalfa, and back at it again to finish the job. It could not be more important, I think, in this moment in national history to have representative leadership who has lived experience with these issues and has kind of strategies and plans on how to tackle some of these really complex problems facing the people that live here. And so I would be honored to earn the support of our community as I try to earn this job. So that's what I'm doing here.
Audrey, as you mentioned, thank you for coming. As you mentioned, it's your third time running for this seat. How is this different? How are you approaching this than the first two tries?
I think the most important thing to recognize that is different is the maps. In 2018 and 2020, this was a deep red district. The first year I ran, it had a Republican registration advantage of 10 points. In the political world, like that is not something that you can generally overcome, right? And so I faced a really kind of long shot uphill battle those first two times, just because of the nature of the maps, right? And then in the special election, that's a slightly different map. Here's where it gets really wonky that I ran in 18 and 20. But then the post-Prop 50, the new California's first district, gerrymandered all to hell to favor Democrats by 10 points. Obviously, that was the point of Prop 50, was to give, to make these new maps, to push back against Trump taking 5 more seats in Texas. We've seen all of the things that have happened since then that I'm sure we can all get annoyed by. Yeah. But so basically the biggest difference is I was going from a R10 district that I lost by 9.5 points in 2018 to now a Democrat plus 10 district, the safest of all the new post-Prop 50 districts. So there will be a Democrat representing California's first starting January 2027 with these new maps. Because wait for it, that's why they were drawn. And so the biggest difference, honestly, is the map is different, and so my chances are way different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to like more of the personal stuff. Yeah. Like, what do you do for fun?
So after I turned 40, I'm 42 now. I'm sure several of you have experienced this, but when you turn 40, you have to pick a new hobby, and the hobbies are pickleball. Crafting or bird watching. Those are the 3
candidate
hobbies.
forums.
Or candidate forums.
Or podcasts.
I have no art skill set. I'm not a podcaster, and I don't have any hand-eye coordination. So I chose birding.
Yeah.
So I am now a amateur bird watcher. I have 4 different bird feeders in my backyard. I have the Merlin app, the eBird app. So mostly I stay in my backyard so far. But it is also really nice to have the same hobby as my cats, because it gives us, quality time to bond. They also like gardening, so I do some gardening in my backyard in downtown Chico. I grow some heirloom beans.
Beans, huh?
Very good at growing heirloom beans and loofah sponges. Nothing else so far, but those are the 2 that I've been able to consistently
Have you bought an
grow.
expensive pair of binoculars yet?
I got a cheap pair.
Okay.
Because I'm a working class lady, so I got your kind of average binoculars, but I had a pair of crows that nested in my neighborhood, which was a pretty big deal. I'm not sure if any of you are on the side of TikTok where you can befriend crows, but they befriended my neighbor and they like sat on his shoulder.
Wow.
They hold
Wow,
grudges.
interesting.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
we could talk about birds. So
Yeah,
this
all
is a bird
corvids.
podcast.
My post 40, I took dirt bikes and I graduated to side by side. So it's like, slightly less hard on my body.
Yeah,
It's like-
that feels right.
yeah. Anyways, I totally.
Yeah, you get it.
I still haven't hit that 40 mark. So
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you're what now? 27.
always
Yeah.
eternal 27,
Yeah.
Audrey. You know
You
that.
check now, though. Yeah, that's nice.
Very nice.
That means that I was. I'm not sure. Famous thing about me. I'm not sure if anybody knows is I bartended for a long time. I was at the Banshee downtown
Oh, really?
for 6 years. Basically, I think I started there about a year after they opened, and then I worked there till I turned 30, which was a while ago now. And then I bartended at the brewery during my undergrad. And so I was going to say, Mark, if you're still 27, then that means I was serving you drinks illegally because you would have been about 12 when I was working. So slightly problematic.
Don't
but
let his secrets out.
Yeah.
He's got a portrait in the basement, though.
Well, as we kind of jump into this thing, can you think of one thing that Doug did that you would continue to champion, that you think he did well and that you appreciated about him?
Absolutely. So Doug and I had, we got to know each other pretty well in those couple of years I was running against him, and I'm going to talk about one thing I appreciated about him as a person, and then I got a policy answer for this too. But one thing that I always appreciated about him as a person was when we would show up and be in the same space together. Like we could go at each other about policies, like when the cameras were on. But as soon as the cameras were off, or even sometimes when they were on, he'd be like, you know what, Audrey and I don't agree about much, but we both love the San Francisco Giants, he was always a really like affable guy who really, I think at the end of the day, had what he thought was best for his constituents in mind. And, honestly, like talking to James Gallagher, like kind of who's following in his footsteps, like James and I we agree on a lot of stuff. Doug and I agreed on a lot of stuff around forestry, rural education, and I'll talk about more of that in a second. But like at the end of the day, a lot of that is when you're from here and you care about this part of the world and you care about the people who live here, a lot of what we want for our communities is going to look the same. Mm-hmm. Like we want people, like we want healthy forests. We want to lower our fire damage or fire risk. We want to make sure that we can live in homes we can afford, where there's a good economy, where kids can stay here and raise their families. Like we want a lot of the same things. It's just that our solutions or our strategies to get there might look different, and our beliefs about the role of government might look different. And so that's one thing that gives me hope in this like divided partisan environment that we live in, is when we can like actually have the conversations about like saying, hey, like we actually want the same thing, but our ideas to get there are different. So then let's talk about the ideas and let's talk about the policies. So I think for me, that's pretty exciting. But one of the things that Doug was doing right towards the end of his tenure was really advocating for the reauthorization of secure rural schools, which is such a critical program for our rural counties. So famously, everyone knows this, 8 to 12.
Yeah, I don't, so please educate me. Yeah.
Famously, 8 to 12% of California's K-12 education funding comes from the feds. That's not you should know that. I should know that. Which isn't a tremendous amount of money in the grand scheme of things, but it's really important money because that money mostly goes to rural schools and high need schools, which is in our congressional district in our part of the world, huge. Secure Rural Schools is actually administered through the Forest Service, and it goes to school districts that have large chunks of federal land, because when we have a bunch of federal land, what do we have less of? Tax base, right? And so when we stopped being able to pull green timber sales out of Forest Service, they started this program, and that money goes to both school districts for them to use in a lot, like really flexible ways, but also to maintain roads in rural counties. And so that's really, really crucial funding that has to be reauthorized every 2 years. So Doug was able to pull off the reauthorization that had been stalled. And I want to build on that. And I really believe that one of the things that I can do in the first 2 years is get legislation through that'll make secure rural schools permanent. So it doesn't have to be reauthorized every 2 years. Because in the current context, like school districts can't count on that money coming through because here's another famously. Congress famously can't get its act together and actually pass a budget. So we're running on CRs all the time. And so school districts can't actually count on that money being reauthorized or actually showing up. And so when it does show up, they're like, great, I guess we'll repaint the parking lot. Real example from Alturas, instead of paying for what they actually need, which is school counselors, more teachers, like things that they actually need. And so that is one thing that not only Doug worked on that I want to continue building towards, but also something that I think I can get done, and hopefully in the first 2 years by working across the aisle with other members of Congress from other states that have high percentages of federal land. So, yeah.
Now, on that, Audrey, what are, you said a lot of good things that Doug's done and done for the area and did for the area. Kind of what is something that you would do different that as opposed to what Doug did?
Man, so the biggest, like, this feels really national, but it's actually not. The biggest thing that is the difference between what Doug and me, or honestly James and me, is like, if you believe that Trump is doing everything right, you should probably vote for James, right? If you believed Doug was, or like Trump was doing everything right, you would have voted for Doug. If you don't think that, you should probably vote for me, because the real effects of having Donald Trump as our president is hitting small businesses, is hitting working class regular people, is hitting people who are on Medicaid, people who have food stamps, small businessers that are getting hit by tariffs, making supply chains, everything coming in the supply chain more expensive, while also like losing market access on the back end. One big beautiful bill, there was a couple things in there that we can talk about that I believe were helpful, including gesturing wildly at Brandon, like the increase of low-income housing tax credits, right? Oh, yeah. Really helpful. That was one thing I think was important for solving or for making progress towards one of our big intractable issues of affordable housing. But when we look at it overall, the broad brush of it is cut services and earned benefits to people to be able to pay for tax cuts to billionaires and corporations. And so that's like, when it comes down to it, like that's the biggest difference, like between voting for James or voting for me. Like that's what it is for me.
So how do you differentiate yourself from Mike then? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you think that what's happened in Sacramento over the last 12 years, if you're super pleased with what's coming out of the state capitol, vote for Mike. Mike has been in the state Senate for 12 years. He was the leader of the California Democrats under a supermajority. And he'll tell you everything that the state Senate has done for you. And if you can actually feel that difference in your quality of life, vote for Mike.
Rolling with the same. I like it.
If you think that what the California Democratic political insider supermajority in California has done over the last 12 years has not benefited you, has not made your life easier, I wouldn't vote for him. Also, the biggest differential, I'm feeling a little spicy. I might have had one too many cups of coffee. Bring me more coffee. The biggest difference, honestly, is who we're accountable to. That guy has been funded by corporate PACs his entire career. And I don't take a dime of corporate PAC money because I only want to be accountable to real people. So if you want a political insider that's never had a career besides public office, vote for Mike. If you want somebody who has lived experience in these issues, who's from here, who will only be accountable to real people, vote for me.
So kind of on that topic, as far as experience, he has a lot. I think you have less, which could be a positive. But do you have any examples of and I don't know, like, have you held any public offices? Have you maybe boards or things that you have had to work at that are in that kind of governmentally kind of world?
I cannot wait to tell you all about them, but I want to drill in here on the word experience. And I'm going to really, you said this was just a conversation and
Sure.
I get to use my platform. So I'm
this
gonna,
isn't even, we haven't even hit any of our things.
I'm going to drive this to what I think is a really important point. And what I would like to highlight, that I'm sitting around the table with 3 brilliant, middle-aged white guys, professionals from Chico, right? And me as the only woman in this race. I'm going to bring it to a slightly different direction. I have never held elected office. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
I have the exact same amount of experience doing federal policy as these 2 guys I'm running against, right? The thought that being a state level politician immediately gives you experience that you can immediately transfer to being a member of the U.S. House of Representatives is what I think is an inaccurate frame. And it's also it has been the biggest attack that people who supported me in 2018 and 2020 have used against me this year. I'm going to start by saying all of labor unions, all of organized labor in 2020 endorsed me. Every single endorsement.
It's okay. We got
They
the
love
paper.
me.
It's okay. You're good.
They loved
Keep
me.
going.
This year, organized labor as a whole, instead of saying, hey, Audrey, Mike's been our guy for 12 years. He's voted with us 95% of the time. We've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars of PAC checks in him. We're going to go with him. Instead of saying that, organized labor said, Audrey doesn't have the experience. Audrey's not experienced. But I was experienced enough 6 years ago to get all their endorsements. And so the experience that I've gained professionally in the last 6 years as the president of the board of the largest human rights organization in Latin America, as a leading national consultant for nonprofits like Feeding America, the experience that I have as lived experience as a working class human that has lived paycheck to paycheck as a bartender before while putting myself through grad school and also teaching, the experience that I have bringing diverse stakeholders together to make evidence-based strategies that lead to our outcomes and then measuring those outcomes to see if we actually achieved what we were trying to achieve. The experience I have overseeing millions of dollar budgets, that for me is the experience that I bring. And on top of that, as a woman in this political world running against 2 career politicians who've been in Sacramento, the amount that I have to know to be considered even competent or capable of doing this job, the amount that I have to be prepared versus what it takes for these guys is a total different bar of entry. And so since 2017, when I started this journey, I have been going to every community in every small town in our part of the world, all the way, Etna, Callahan, Alturas, Taylorsville. I've been sitting in coffee shops and church basements and auction yards and talking to people and understanding about their lived experience and their problems. And then I've been going home and I've been researching like a mad woman, what are the actual federal levers that I can press as a member of Congress to tangibly make people's lives better? And so that is what I've done over the past 8 years now to prepare myself for this job. And so thank you for letting me kind of go off about sexism and experience. But
great.
what I hope is the takeaway is that I'm wildly prepared for this job and I will do a really good job at it. And that is that metric that I will use to be the barometer of whether or not I did a good job is will life tangibly get better for the people who live in my congressional district over the tenure of my service. And I believe that is a thing.
I was going to follow up on that. It seems like you said the dynamics have kind of changed for you. I mean, for the past 2 elections you've been involved in this position, you've had the whole Democratic Party behind you, and they've literally switched sides on you. And personally, as a friend of yours, it's sad to see because I know all the hard work you've put in with them over the years. How has your approach now changed with a lot of the people who, as you're saying, who supported you before, aren't supporting you now as you speak to potential voters and everyone else from here to Healdsburg for this district?
Yeah. This is one of the things that gives me the amount of freedom that I have right now is that I am not the endorsed candidate of the Democratic Party. And a big reason why I am still in this fight, because to be honest, this is not fun. I'm not doing this for fun. I'm not doing this for self-enrichment. By the way, you don't make money when you're running for office. A big part of why I'm doing this is I still believe in the Democratic Party, but I believe that it needs serious change and serious reform. And I believe that we have to call it out from the inside. And so a big part of what I'm doing is speaking truth to power within the Democratic establishment and saying, hey, when you're bought and paid for by corporations, you're not actually showing up for people. When Mike McGuire and James Gallagher have at least 73 of the same corporate PACs on their donor rolls from the last 12 years in the state legislature, that shows you that the parties, the establishment parties, are working for the same entities and they're not regular people, right? And so for me, the freedom that comes from not being endorsed by the Democratic Party allows me to say, hey, like, we can be better, the party can be better, and if the party doesn't want to be better, well, then let's start a new party, or let's all become no party preference voters, and let's actually show people what it means to have people in leadership that fight for them. So yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to steal one of Dorian's terms here and say, I want to double click on talking about the Democratic Party and things that can change. And I just love to get your thoughts on that. And like, what are some things that you feel like they've kind of gone the wrong direction on, and how you want to
the bet on?
Yeah.
Did you see how I used a word that didn't?
Yeah, look at that. Yeah.
Fool me once.
Yeah. Growing up.
Okay, I think there's two really big things that are intertwined. The one is like there aren't enough of them who will call out the fact that, or even cop up to the fact that they require and rely on corporate money to continue to get elected and special interest money. So like for me, that's the root of almost all evil. That's like why don't we have, and I think we need a single payer nonprofit healthcare system. Why don't we have that? Well, because the Democratic Party is also captured by the private insurance and big pharma, right? So like that whole corporate money piece is really important. But I think the other side of it is like, they've failed to articulate a vision over the past decade of something of an America that actually benefits working class people. And they've spent so much time being timid and talking about incremental change and protecting institutions, that they've become, and just saying, oh, just trust us. Listen, we can't handle a division in the party, just vote for Hillary. We can't handle division in the party, just vote for Biden. We have to do something. Who can beat Trump? Me, Harris. We'll just, instead of actually, that's what they sound like in my brain.
Yeah.
Instead, I said I wasn't gonna do voices, and then I did. But they haven't cast the vision for like, here's what the next 250 years of the American experiment can look like. Here's what our democracy looks like when it's founded on systems that center people. Here's what the political and economic system can look like when it centers people and neighbors and communities and not corporations. And so I'm really interested in helping both cast that vision, but also helping say like, here's the anti-corruption measures that we need to put on the whole system, on both parties, to make sure that we are working towards a democracy where people trust it again, right? Where people trust the outcomes of elections, where people believe their vote matters, where people believe they have a say in what happens. So for me, those are some of the things that I want to be a part of. And I think it's going to take a new generation of leaders that are like of their communities, but also like representative of their communities. And I believe that means also more women's leadership, more working class leadership, both things that I bring.
So you're saying it's not okay to go into Congress with no money and then come out $100 million, worth $100 million?
I'm so interested in how that happens.
I want to sign up for that. That's
Dude,
what I want.
I think the only problem for me, besides the fact that I believe that we need to immediately ban congressional stock trading and executive branch stock trading and for their immediate families. I think to benefit from insider trading, you need something to trade. So I'm like, I would never make it. Just kidding. That was a little joke about being a working class human. Not my best one. But yeah, I mean, that's such a low bar. I mean, members of Congress, the executive branch, like trading individual stocks to make bazillions of dollars using their insider knowledge. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Wonder why people don't trust them.
I really appreciate what you said about articulating the vision. I also appreciate your nod to doing the research of what levers you can pull to make a difference. And I really appreciate your accountability to regular people. Those three things I think are great nods to what your plans are. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what a successful term as a congressperson looks like for you.
Yeah. Okay. So my first term. Okay. So I want to set the scene. I want to set the stage. I want to keep the viewers at home excited. So my first 2 years in the House of Representatives are going to be the last 2 years of Donald Trump's term. We will potentially have a Democrat House of Representatives. Maybe Democrats will control the Senate. We don't really know. Donald Trump will still be the president. Regardless, this is not the 2-year time frame where big, bold pieces of progressive legislation are going to get passed, right? I believe, quick pause, I believe that the economic conditions that we're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months with the AI bubble potentially bursting, with massive layoffs from a lot of companies because of AI, the energy and water costs that we'll see changing because of AI. I believe that the economic situation in 12 to 18 months is going to be so much more dire than it is right now, especially with our loss of, or not our loss, our intentional cutting of so many social safety nets like Medicaid and food stamps because of One Big Beautiful Bill, that I believe stuff's about to get a lot worse for the everyday American before it gets better. And I believe that we will be in a place that we will need bold progressive solutions akin to the New Deal to get regular working class people like back on track. Do I think I'm going to do that in the first 2 years? No, absolutely not. Here's what I'm going to do in the first 2 years in this historically divided, least productive Congress since the early 1900s. I'm going to be hyper focused on what I can do for the communities that I serve. That does not look like trying to get a bunch of legislation passed. That looks like, how do we use earmarks, congressionally directed spending, community project funding, whatever you want to call them, 3 words for the same thing, bringing resources and directing resources back to our district. Here are some of the we talked about secure rural schools, right? There's, in FEMA, there is pre-disaster mitigation funding called BRIC, B-R-I-C, that we can leverage for some of the infrastructure projects, specifically with roads, with evacuation routes, that I think is something that's really worth tapping into. This is going to sound crazy because it's not a problem that we have here locally, but in Lake County, there is an insane amount of unneutered cats and dogs, specifically in Clear Lake, to the point where it's causing like a public health crisis. Like I had, at a meet and greet I had in Clear Lake, I had 15 people sitting around in a coffee shop. The only thing that they all agreed on was, what can we do about the cats and dogs? Like, wow. it was wild. And so then obviously, what did I do? That's the sound.
Research.
That's the sound that research makes. But I looked up, I was like, okay, like if we get it called like a public health crisis, we can go through USDA, rural dev, there's like money, we could like get a spay and neuter mobile clinic van and drive it. I mean, I wouldn't be driving the spay and neuter van technically. But you know, that's like a specific earmark that we could get done that would have a tremendous difference for that community, right? Working, and then I want to sit on the Ag Committee and the Natural Resources Committee. Getting a farm bill, we've been on the same farm bill since 2018 and it should have expired in 2023. Our government is continuing to try to govern itself with last-ditch emergency measures and continuing things instead of, because they're too dysfunctional and polarized to even like pass a clean budget. So I want to be on the committee that helps get the next farm bill through. And that's SNAP benefits, that's nutrition assistance, all federal nutrition programs. That's Forest Service budget, that's conservation funding, that's, ag processing, all of that's tied up in the farm bill. So those are a couple examples of like really the kinds of things I'll be focused on are where are the opportunities to use these federal levers to this money, famously the power of the purse, that will be my biggest way to influence to make life better for folks. And so those are some of the ways that I want to do that. Yeah.
You bring up agriculture, Audrey, and as you know, we're both in ag. We're both in families, both in ag. Major economic driver in this district.
Yeah.
Commodity prices, trade, water issues, a lot of things going on. What are some things, as you mentioned, and what are some other things that you can see to help the ag industry here within your district and locally?
Yeah. So the farm bill is huge. And there's a couple angles that I want to kind of bring up as we're thinking about federal farm policy. So much of it is dictated by who has the most expensive lobbyists, who has the most power, who has the most representation. And when you look across the Midwest and you look at most of our commodity crops grown in the Midwest, corn, beans, those are going to be the major crops that are generally supported in the Farm Bill. Most of our stuff out here, our specialty crops, our orchard crops, our wine grapes, aren't things that are traditionally advocated for because there's less of us, right? There's less members of Congress in California that have deep and rich backgrounds in agriculture. And so making sure that specialty crops, California agriculture is front and center at those discussions is really important. And then also that we're actually centering family farmers and not massive corporate entities. Another thing to kind of weave into this, I love not having to keep my answers to 90 seconds, by the way. This is my preferred format.
I knew this format. You would love this format, so it was made for you.
So we'll be this is a 3.5-hour podcast interview that everybody will be excited to watch.
I do have an 11:30.
Sure.
I got to leave at 11:30. So.
Sure, likely story. Okay, but this one other thing, real quick, it's exciting. When we think about the impact of the tariffs, right? So I told you I grew up on a wine grape vineyard. We lost the ranch actually in 2010. We lost all of our grape contracts with the economic downturn in 2008. I kept it going for a little while and then sold off all the parts he could and then eventually lost it to foreclosure. And so I know this really personally. And so when we look at specifically Trump's tariffs and their effect on markets, we lost 25% of the California wine grape market overnight to Canada, right? And those aren't markets that are coming back. And already, even before that, these dang Gen Z kids aren't drinking enough wine. We clearly are. But so consumption patterns are down. So California wine grapes before the tariffs were already in the biggest crisis since Prohibition. They pulled out in the year of our Lord 2025, they pulled out 50,000 acres in California of wine grapes. Looks like we probably need to pull out another 40,000 acres for the market to hit equilibrium. Which of the vines are going to get pulled out? Which one of these guys aren't going to make it? E&J Gallo or Mom and Pop Vineyard in Healdsburg, right? So we need farm policy that centers and supports small family farmers who are the lifeblood of this area. We can talk about water, we can talk about labor, but I'm not sure if you want me to keep talking about ag.
Water. Let's go water.
Let's
double
down.
Okay. Tell us about your water policies and thoughts.
I'm going to solve all our water problems.
I'm so glad.
Actually, I don't have a water problem. I turn on my faucet, it comes on.
That's so great. And what's crazy is that some people in Butte and Glenn County in our rural communities do have a water problem,
Totally.
Which is really important to kind of ground ourselves in. It's also really important as we start this chapter of the conversation, which will go for an hour and a half. We have
3 minutes is
famously the most complex water policy is in California. Like we have water rights laws that are from before California was a state, our Pueblo water rights laws. That's what, like when California was still Mexico. We have like pre-1914, post-1914, SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Like we have really, really complex systems. We have the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project, both of which headwaters are in California's first district, at least until the new map. And so there's DWR, Department of Water Resources of the state. Where the federal government plays in is funding for infrastructure through the Water Resources Development Act, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulation Commission for some of our like commissioning, decommissionings of massive infrastructure projects, and then the executive, the Trump administration has started putting their finger on the scale too of like water flows that we've seen through the system. So those are some of the different levers. A couple of the hot button issues that are happening around here. Sites Reservoir, Sites is happening. They're breaking ground in 2027. Like I don't think it's the best use of $6.7 billion, but it's happening now. So get on board and make sure that like,
if you don't think it's the best use of that much money for a project that started theoretically in 1979,
right?
What do you think is a better use for storage in California?
So the cheapest way for us to do storage is to get our forests into a state of ecological health. Like calm down. So like if we use $6.7 billion in massive landscape level forest restoration projects in the watersheds in our part of the world, instead of building a reservoir where we're going to have to pump water in, pump water out, and we're going to lose 30,000 acre feet a year to evaporation, like it's whatever, it's happening, it's fine. Let's find more federal money to do the forest restoration work that we need. Let's not raise the Shasta Dam, because that will only actually help us store more water in the years that it rains. Famously, I one time in 2018 said, Doug, if raising the Shasta Dam would make it rain more, I'd be all for it. That was my favorite quote that I ever said to Doug. He laughed. Sites or SGMA. I mean, at the end of the day, bring it all together in one cohesive package, Audrey. At the end of the day, the best thing that I believe that I can do as a member of Congress to protect California's water future and our ability to capture rainwater, refill our aquifers, recharge our groundwater, is investing in the watersheds in our part of the world and the forest restoration work.
So I'm somewhat ignorant. Help me understand how a healthy forest is going to I'm guessing you're saying that it's going to recharge our aquifers.
Okay, so right now, our forests have I need you to just go with me really quickly on a journey into the pre-colonial forests, where the Native Americans, indigenous people who had been living here for millennia had been stewarding our forests through fire, prescribed burns, cultural burning practices forever, right? So imagine an acre of forest land. It's going to have about 50 to 80 trees per acre. Some of them are going to be old growth trees. There's going to be a diversity of species. There's going to be meadows. Really different than what most of our forested land looks like now, after 100 years of fire suppression policy, chronic underinvestment in the Forest Service. We're looking at a lot of our Forest Service land has 800 trees per acre, all the same variety, all smoshed up next to each other like that. And so in a lot of these cases, like the snowpack actually evaporates before it can even get to the top of the soil to recharge the groundwater system, to be part of that. And I love ecology. And in a post-fire landscape too, like when you look at Plumas County and 60% of the land has burned, or 70, something, don't quote me on that, says the woman who's being recorded.
Recorded, yeah. I'm pretty sure you just got quoted.
60 to 70, a large amount of Plumas County has burned, land mass has burned really recently. And so restoring those landscapes to health, to be able to, because the water quality, the pollution element that comes with that when the water from the Feather River watershed is being like primarily directed down to like the metropolitan water district. Like we need to make sure that there's enough of it, and that it also isn't full of a bunch of contaminants from burnt down houses, you know. And so these are some of the ways that healthy forests can help us actually store water. So thank you for that question.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad you love ecology so much. That's great. I want to double click on something.
Yeah.
There you go.
Famously, we're seeing a ton of polarization. We're seeing incredible division in locally, in the
Yeah.
country, all over the place. We're seeing these party line splits
nasty.
that are preventing anything from getting done. Tell me about your method for bringing people to your side, and tell me about what it takes to compromise or to stand your grounds and to bring people to your side on the issues that you don't want to compromise on.
Yeah. So I want to push back on the frame a little bit because
Okay.
it's not bringing people to my side, right? It's creating a collective like shared vision for what we want in our community or our part of the world, and then it's solutioning the best way to get there. And every single vote that I take, every single decision that I make, at least 50% of the people are going to be pissed at me. That's like maybe more, right? And that's like, you can't govern under like trying to make everybody happy all of the time, because the very nature of these like really complex and tractable problems is that you have to make decisions that have either like benefit multi-stakeholders or do the most good for the most people, while trying to, I promised I wouldn't say this, mitigate the negative externalities of those decisions, or like lessen the bad things that happen to other people is a more simple way of putting that, right? And so for me, it's like, how do I make a big enough table where everybody's voice is there, everybody's lived expertise is there, and then how do we go from there? So practically what I want to do is I want to have a task force for each of these different issues: watershed restoration, rural healthcare, wildfire insurance, rural education, and have subject matter experts and people with lived experience on those different issues from all of the 9 different counties that I represent. We'll meet monthly. And these folks will help us identify problems before they become catastrophic, like Glenn Medical Center losing its critical access designation. Like if we had identified that sooner, we could have potentially stopped the hospital from closing, right? So it'll help us identify problems. They'll help us figure out those levers that we can press, figure out where those buckets of funding are that we can get. And then long term, they'll be able to help us like craft what are those pieces of legislation, what are the actual legislative fixes that we need. And so for me, it is really like, and that's not just going to be Democrats, you know, like that needs to be, for me, people who want to put their community first, who want to look beyond these partisan labels and want to say like, how do we actually solution for our people? Using solution as a verb there, which it's not, but I liked it.
Yeah, you can solution things.
I can solution. I'm going to solution the heck out of things.
I want to just, I guess where my head goes with that is, I like your reframing of, I want to paint a bigger picture that brings more people to the table, but I want to lightly push back.
Yeah, do
on
it. You can push back strongly. I can take it.
50% that, you know, are hopeless. It harkens to Mitt Romney's comments of 47% of the country will never vote for me, which was a gaffe, or Hillary's basket of deplorables, half the country will never vote for me, which was a gaffe, right?
Yeah.
What do we do about bringing more than 50% to the same table?
I think that 50, if I'm doing my job right, that 50% or that 30% of people who is mad at me is always changing. So I think that's a really key point, because this was one of my friends actually said that, he was a former state legislator in Sacramento. He's from the Central Coast, and he was like, Audrey, as long as the 30% of people who are pissed at me is always changing, I feel like I'm doing my job.
I think it's a wonderful distinction.
Good job, Jordan. But so I think that's important to say, but also like, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you something different about myself, which is that like that my core belief that I bring to this job, that I bring to every interaction in my life, is that every single human is inherently equal in worth and rights and dignity. Every single human. And that comes from both like my faith perspective, like all God's children, but also it comes from my human rights training and my human rights background. And how that lives out in the world is that means that every single like experience that you've had in your life is yours, and it's valid because it's yours. And so the way that you were brought up, the family system that you were brought up in, the community that you were brought up in, that shapes your values and your beliefs, and then that shapes your actions. And so if I truly believe that your lived experience is valid and yours, then I can't say that I am morally superior, like, because I believe like all of our opinions are equally valid, even though they're different, right? And so that is the genuine frame that I bring. Do I sometimes think I am absolutely right about the best solution to get an outcome? Absolutely. I will dig my heels in and I'll be like, this is the best solution. There's the most evidence pointing this direction. And then we'd have to wait for it, do a pilot test or implement it, and then decide like what metrics we're going to be using to measure success, and then measure success on it and to see if we like objectively were able to do it. And if not, then we change the strategy. This is the kind of thing in the professional world, in the nonprofit sector, in the corporate world, in the private sector, that is just really, really obvious, that like any of you making a business plan or a strategic plan for an organization would expect. And yet our government is just like, Blue Cross told me to do this, so we're going to do this now. And so that part is a little bit crazy for me. So there was the answer to 17 questions that you didn't ask, and maybe one that you did ask.
What I was hoping to hear. Yeah, well said.
So kind of going on the political divisiveness thing, and it seems like there's this new thing in our culture where it's like, oh, if you believe this, I'm never going to work with you and you're evil. And like, how do we come back to like, reality?
Yeah.
And like,
how do we make it community? Like,
it's okay to have healthy disagreement and still be friends. And like, to me, that's, I don't know, that's what it's all about. Like, I mean, what are little things? What are big things we can do? Maybe I obviously you can't legislate morality, but like, man, what do we do? How do we, I feel like we got lost.
Yeah, I think we get too wrapped up, and you've said, I mean, you've kind of, in this conversation, kind of, it's like Trump this, Trump that. I don't want to care about Trump or Epstein or whatever. I care about Chico, Butte County, what's going on here, where you can help. So yeah, with Brandon's question, what do you do with that?
I'm going to answer that question. I've got two things that we can do. And I want to like, I hear what you're saying, Mark, but I also want to just like acknowledge the fact that like Trump's decisions have real impacts on people's actual real lives. So like we can say this administration, we can say one big beautiful bill, but we have to be able to still be able to have a conversation of like these policy things that have been enacted hurt real people. Like these tariffs. So like that, I just want to say.
With that, I hear from if 4 years or 2 years ago with the Biden administration, it was the same thing from the other side. Those policies. So like I said, I want to get away from that. I want to know, how do you, as Brandon so elegantly put it, how do you fix that divide? How do you look at community? I don't care. There shouldn't be right or left when it comes to a bike lane in this town or a car in this town or whatever. How do you go about working that and fixing that issue that has become so divided? Because me and you don't see eye to eye on everything, but we're really good friends. Yeah. And my neighbors and everything else. And how do we get back to that?
How do we heal the social fabric of our country?
Yes.
So
without blaming Trump.
There's two things that I think we can do. I think that we're circling around a little bit. One of them, and I think it starts so local. Like my very next door neighbors are Linda. She recently lost her husband John, but when I moved into my house 4 years ago, I was able to buy. I am a homeowner as a 42-year-old, which I feel really single income. I feel very, very honored and lucky to be able to do that. I will live into this home until I die. When the lifelong Republicans, the pickup truck had a sticker in the back of the window that said "Scare a liberal, buy a gun," and so I was like moving in. I was like, well, we'll see what happens here. So I hop out of my car the first day, and John was there to greet me, and he said, "Audrey, it is so nice to meet you. I am so proud of you, and I cannot wait to have a glass of wine and learn about everything that you learned on your campaigns. And I just like started crying. I was like, will you be my dad? And that's how, like, we became really, really close friends. And so like, these are people that I now like, I sit with them weekly and have wine and and we talk about our differences and we talk about like all of our shared common values, you know? And so I think like in a culture that is so on our phone and into the like digital space, I think actually re-grounding ourselves in community with people who believe different things than us, and finding ways to love each other through that, I think is crucial. And so that's like the thing that everyone can do. And in like social movements, anytime we're trying to make social change, there's always two elements. It's like what is like collective change is made up of lots of people's individual actions, but it's also made up of like, what is the type of leadership that you're deciding to elect? So there's the two different things, no matter what social change we're talking about. So that's the individual action. That level is like, we can each be more engaged in our communities, finding people who disagree with us and loving them and becoming friends. And the other part is like, you could elect leaders like James or I, who are both on opposite sides of the table, but both deeply, deeply believe in our communities and care about our part of the world and like want to solve problems for everyone. And like, I believe that his and I ability to actually have good conversations around these issues and say like, hey, we don't agree on everything, but like, here are the stuff we do agree on. I think that sets an example of a kind of post whatever this crazy partisan divide is, like what post that could look like, you know? And so those are two things that make social change. We have 6 minutes till he has to.
I was just going to say, you're watching the clock too. So
let's see. Maybe we
land the plane. Let's land the plane.
Yeah. Audrey, thank you so much for joining us today. As we wind down, I want to create space for you to give us a closing statement. Tell us what you want to make sure this community knows about you.
Well, the first time she's speechless.
I was going to say, first time I've ever seen you speechless.
I'm not speechless, I'm thinking.
Yeah, she's thinking
Let a woman think.
Okay, we'll give it to you.
So I want, what I hope this community knows about me. Didn't expect this to happen. Is how deeply I care. I love this part of the world. I love Northern California. I love Chico. I love Butte County. And I feel like, 23 years deep, I can say I'm from here. This is my home. And I believe I have a really unique skill set and perspective to serve our communities well in this specific role. The reason why I have not run for city council or county supervisor or state assembly is because I think I will be a really good federal policymaker. That is where my passion is. That is what I'm really excited to do, is make that system work better for the people who live here. And I don't want to be a career politician. I want to go back there for the 6 years until they redraw the maps and then find some other way to serve my community, right? But I just really, really believe that the skill set that I bring, the political courage that I bring, and the freedom from influence from corporations or special interests or party establishment on either side will allow me to be a really effective policymaker for my part of the world. And it would just be the greatest honor.
Audrey Denney, thank you for what you do. Thank you for rising to the occasion and for caring about this community. We appreciate you today, and we look forward to following your campaign with great interest.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. Appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.